Picture this. Deep beneath the earth of the Olduvai Gorge, a dusty 1.8 million-year-old stone chopping tool lies buried. It's a silent witness to the very dawn of humanity. In this explainer, we're going to explore a land that isn't just the literal cradle of our species, but a fascinating modern marvel of geographical, cultural, and political harmony.
We're talking about the United Republic of Tanzania. It's a nation defined by staggering extremes, yet forged in an incredibly rare kind of harmony. In fact, its national motto, Uhuru na Umoja, translates directly to freedom and unity. And as we dive into this history, you'll see that's really not just some catchy slogan. It is the absolute DNA of the country.
To understand the canvas all of this is painted on, we begin with Section 1, a land of extremes.
And it truly is a breathtaking contrast. First, you have the freezing, snow-capped peak of Mount Kilimanjaro, piercing the sky at 5,895 meters above sea level. It's literally the highest single freestanding mountain in the entire world. But then, you plunge straight down into the dark, aquatic depths of Lake Tanganyika, dropping down to 1,471 meters below sea level. In a single country, you hold both the soaring roof of Africa and the continent's absolute deepest, most enigmatic waters.
Suspended right between those incredible geographical extremes are the endless golden plains of the Serengeti. If you were to sweep over this landscape, you'd witness millions of white-bearded wildebeest, zebras, and bovids caught up in a massive, ancient annual migration. It is an ecosystem operating on a scale that honestly almost defies human comprehension.
But this land isn't just about majestic wildlife. It's really about us. Section 2, the cradle of humanity.
1.8 million. I just want you to sit with that number for a second. That is the staggering age of the hominid fossils and stone tools discovered right here in Tanzania. From the very beginning, this region has been an ultimate crossroads for human migration. You had hunter-gatherers, Cushitic speakers coming down from the north, Nilotes, and Bantu peoples who eventually brought iron-making and agriculture.
The march of time here is incredibly dynamic, and to be honest, often deeply tragic. On one hand, you have technological marvels. Like 1,500 years ago, the Haya people were already out there forging carbon steel and high-heat blast furnaces. But as we move forward, the history grows much darker. The 19th century saw Zanzibar become the brutal epicenter of the East African slave trade. Then came formal colonial rule. The Germans established German East Africa in 1885, a move that led directly to the fierce Maji Maji Rebellion in 1905.
And the cost of that early resistance against German colonial rule? It was staggering. 300,000. That is the somber, devastating death toll of the Maji Maji Rebellion and the terrible famine that followed. It was a steep, painful price paid by the native population, and it forever scarred the early 20th century for this region.
Following World War I, the territory transitioned over to British rule. But that deep desire for self-determination just couldn't be extinguished, which leads us to Section 3, freedom and unity.
So, how did modern Tanzania actually get its name? It's literally a mashup of two totally distinct entities. On the mainland, you had Tanganyika, a name derived from Swahili words meaning sail in the wilderness. Off the coast, you had the Zanzibar archipelago, which translates to the coast of the Zanj people. Following their respective independence from the British in the early 1960s and a pretty bloody revolution in Zanzibar, these two vastly different realms merged in 1964 to form the United Republic of Tanzania.
Under the leadership of Julius Nyerere, the new nation adopted a uniquely African socialist vision. It was known as Ujamaa, and it strongly emphasized collective ownership and rural development. But above all else, the thematic anchor was Uhuru na Umoja, freedom and unity. The big question, though, is how do you actually achieve that kind of unity in a place with such incredibly deep, complex, and varied roots?
How do you unite a vast array of distinct cultures without everything fracturing? Welcome to Section 4, a tapestry of voices.
Think about the number 120. That is the approximate number of completely distinct ethnic groups coexisting in Tanzania today. We are talking about a massive demographic tapestry woven together from Bantu, Cushitic, Nilotic, and Kosan language families. In a lot of places in the world, this level of sheer diversity has unfortunately been a recipe for deep conflict.
And that diversity extends right into faith, too. About 63% of the population identifies as Christian, around 34% as Muslim, with Zanzibar, by the way, being almost entirely Islamic, and the remainder following traditional faiths or other religions. Yet, somehow, Muslims, Christians, and followers of traditional faiths coexist here incredibly peacefully. Tanzania has largely managed to avoid the deep tribal and religious fractures that we've seen in so many neighboring nations.
The secret weapon behind that peace? Swahili. While there are over 100 languages spoken here, President Nyerere masterfully promoted Swahili as the one national language. It became the great unifier. By actively prioritizing a shared language over individual tribal divisions, the government successfully constructed a cohesive, single national identity right from the ground up.
And that unified identity has given birth to a seriously vibrant modern culture. Visually, you've got these brightly colored, internationally recognized tinga-tinga enamel paintings. Auditorily, the airwaves are just dominated by bongo flava, which is this awesome Tanzanian pop fusion of taarab, dancey, hip-hop, and afro-pop. And if you take a walk through the bustling, unplanned communities of Dar es Salaam today, your pulse will absolutely race to the frantic 300 beats per minute rhythm of Singeli street music.
Which brings us to the country as it stands today. Section 5, the modern pulse.
67.5 million. That's the estimated population for 2024. And that makes Tanzania the most populous country located entirely south of the equator. It is a massive, young, and rapidly growing nation.
So what exactly is driving this growing nation forward? Well, agriculture is the absolute bedrock. It employs half the workforce and provides a massive 85% of all exports. But tourism is another huge pillar, bringing in billions of dollars every year. And then there's mining, specifically gold, which completely dominates the industrial export sector.
But here is the kicker. Even as it races to develop, Tanzania fiercely holds on to its natural heritage. A staggering 38% of the country's entire land area is strictly dedicated to protected national parks and conservation areas. From the lion-filled plains of the Serengeti all the way to Jane Goodall's famous chimpanzee research site in Gombe, the commitment to preserving the Earth's biodiversity here is just unparalleled.
So as we wrap up this explainer, we are left with a pretty profound question. Against the backdrop of a golden Serengeti sunset, you have to ask, can a nation born of such immense extremes, built from 120 different voices, maintain its delicate, hard-won harmony while racing headfirst into the modern future? It's a fascinating question, and watching Tanzania answer it in the coming decades is going to be nothing short of cinematic. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey.